Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order. May I have approval of the agenda, please? I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries to approve the agenda. Next item on the agenda is citizens or delegations. Do I have any citizens or delegations that wish to speak tonight? Yes? Okay. Yes. Okay, I have to read this rather lengthy legalese thing, so bear with me a moment. Are we good? Members of the audience, the Board of Education is now at the place on the agenda where we will receive public comments from citizens or delegations on areas of interest that are not on the agenda. The Board of Education will generally not respond or act on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Appropriate items will be referred to administration or one of the board's committees. Citizens wishing to speak on one of the posted agenda items may do so as items are called by the board president. While the board and district welcome public comments, we as a board also must ask that you exercise care in your comments that relate specifically to district employees or persons connected with the school system. In order to protect rights of these individuals and in the interest of complying with open meetings law on prior postings of items for consideration at this meeting, the board reserves the right to end comment on such topics. The use of specific names of district personnel may lead to legal liability on the part of the speaker. The board would also remind the public that the board has existing procedures in place to dispose of legitimate complaints against staff members and persons related to the system. Persons desiring to speak should come to the podium and give their name and address before beginning to speak. Each person is asked to speak no more than 3 minutes. I just want to cue people to the convenient time clock for 3 minutes. So please step forward.
Hello, Tia Johnson, Beloit, Wisconsin. Pam is passing down some information for you. This is all DPI data publicly available. You can do some data mining, and I suggest you all get familiar with the DPI website and WISE Dash. It's a wonderful database, and you should all be well versed in it. These are the numbers of students enrolling in and out of the school district of Beloit since 2009. I think you should all be surprised and disappointed with these numbers, and I believe you should all think deep and reflect on what you can do to turn these numbers around. Attached to all of these numbers of students, these bodies leaving our district, are thousands of dollars.
Anybody else?
Good evening, John Acom, 2103 West Collingswood Drive, Beloit, Wisconsin. Tia calls our attention to the fact that we are losing students. And one of the reasons that you gain or lose students has to do with the pride that students and administrators and educators and the school board and everyone connected with the school district takes in its school district. And that pride is poorly nurtured by a building which is known for its leaks, its mold, its unusable areas, and its drinking fountains that aren't safe to use. I'm talking, of course, about the Colac Center. So I would suggest that one of the best approaches that I can think of to address the issue that Tia raises is, in fact, to go ahead and replace this aging, decrepit building, which is beyond redemption, quite frankly, replace it with the new idea that was brought to us by Beloit 2020, and it's going to enhance our pride and the pride of everyone in this community in this school. And a school that has pride, a school district that has pride, enhances its community. It enhances the way people feel about their community. It enhances property values in the community. It's a good thing for the community. So, again, tonight, I urge you, please go ahead with the Beloit 2020 plan. Thank you. Minute 25 left this time.
Good evening. My name is Shirley Williams. I reside at 2170 Hayfield Lane here in Beloit. One thing I would take note to the board, if we're going to follow order and procedures, and it definitely reads on here that we should not be speaking about any items that are on the agenda. And the previous person, I think, did speak to that, and I'm really disappointed that there were no interruptions and corrections, because that's not acceptable. One of the reasons that you're probably having a meeting tonight. I quickly looked at the website today before coming here today because I wanted to find out what was occurring in the school district, specifically when classes were resumed and activities, etc. Because I'm involved in an after-school program in the district that works with some of your students as well as some of the other districts in the area. And I was pleasantly and unfortunately surprised that there really is no information whatsoever about the upcoming calendar year. Could say it's a timing issue, but this has been kind of consistent that the calendar and information is not accurate. And if I was a new parent, as I was 18 years ago trying to seek information, I would be very hesitant to think about enrolling in this district, particularly in this technological age where information should be readily available at my fingertips. So I would encourage you, maybe there's not enough personnel, I don't know. And if there's not enough personnel, I would ask you to really think about how can we find enough dollars to have enough people to do the work in order to inform parents of the basic information of what's occurring in the district. Again, I will say this, there was an improvement because last year I had very difficult times finding out the athletic events. The athletic page actually had information on it all the way throughout the academic year through May of 2018. But the only two things I found on the calendar for the school district schools were two intermediate schools in late August that they had an open house, and that was it. There's no other opening of school or nothing. So I would encourage you to definitely look at your websites and make sure that things are appropriate for families when they're coming into the district. If we're going to look at other items to draw people in, we need to start with the basics. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I yield my 3 minutes to him of Beloit, Wisconsin.
Ken Streeter, 1401 McKinley, Beloit. I came here, I was going to talk about statistics and whatnot, but after careful consideration, I think I want to tell a little story about one of our students. One of our students whose mother succumbed to cancer, brain cancer, early in her school career, late elementary school. This young person was forced into a home with a father she never knew who didn't care. And over her middle school career, she was exposed to mental abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and unreported sexual abuse. Needless to say, this young lady's education has suffered gravely. Some loving relatives happily, finally went to court and got guardianship of this young person. Because of the problems she was having and what she was exposed to in her school career, she obviously had problems, behavioral problems, mental problems, things that needed counseling. She was expelled in their 9th grade. The loving relatives that took her in, very, very Christian people, have worked with her and worked with this student. And over her expulsion, she was homeschooling to keep up with the work that she was missing. She was thirsting. She was doing well, but she was failing miserably because she didn't have the people in her life from this district to help tutor her, to help her along. There was absolutely no resources available for this person, this young student. I myself, I tried to get involved. I've called people at COLAC. I've called principals. I've called people at BLA. There was absolutely no help for this young person that wanted to turn her life around and do better, who was trying to do the homeschooling at home. There was just absolutely nothing. This young person went back into school. She did what she had to do to be accepted back in to the district, only to find out that she didn't know what she needed to do. She didn't know what she needed to know to continue on in that 10th grade education. Needless to say, she was suspended several more times. And she's trying hard, but there is absolutely nothing available for tutoring, for help outside of class, for children that are expelled or suspended, for children who are thirsting for that help, who are actually reaching out for the guardians, the parents. There is nothing outside of this school district or in this school district that we spend money on to help these outcast kids, these kids who are falling into situations that are not their problems, not their fault. How dare this board sit here and talk about spending $80,000 on a canopy or a parking lot when these students are continually falling through the cracks of our schools. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Oh, yes?
We do speak about the agenda item at the agenda item moment, public comment moment, right?
Sure. Okay, so we are on to the next agenda item, which is the board action. So I would invite you to come forward if you have something that you want to say.
Otis Johnson, 2386 Terra Court, Beloit, Wisconsin. I'm a fifth generation school district of Beloit product. My daughter's sixth generation current enrollee. My family's been in the Beloit area for an extreme amount of time, 175 years plus. So very well versed and know what our community has experienced, gone through, etc. Over the course of time. I believe that in my time, the school district of Beloit has done an absolute fantastic job revitalizing and reimagining what's possible and what we can do through a couple of different referendums. And in my opinion, honestly, each one of those referendums was just short-sighted for what could it have been. So we have a unique opportunity here to be able to do some really great projects inside of our own budget without having to overextend or without having to chase the referendum schedule again and delay things further. I really applaud the way that the administration has looked at these problems and figured out better ways of going about it to fit this into the budget over the course of time, but still really enhancing the overall look, feel, and vibrancy that the district has to offer. We're a very diverse community, and we've always championed that. And I think the more that we can continue to develop and continue to progress towards like the vision of the future, instead of worrying about the past or even the current situation of what it is now, but looking at the situation 5 to 10 years from now. And we know that this building is not a viable option for 5 to 10 years from now. The longer we sit in this building, the more likely we are to lose very large amounts of dollars in maintenance costs and expenses. This building, I mean, we're going through it through the planning stages of what to even do with this building to find a good adaptive reuse, and it's difficult. And right now, it's a taxpayer expense that we're bearing that's only going to become a larger expense into the future. Being a hockey player, I feel like one of the things in the campus master plan that was short-sighted, we talk about all the sports, there's no ice arena. I'd love to see an ice arena attached to the Welcome Center, because I also believe if you talk to Jim Agati or talk to any hockey parent, you'd find out very quickly that the amount of business that could generate if it was attached to the building would be phenomenal for the downtown city center core. But the ice arena is potentially coming in some other way, which is fine. But at the same time, I just want to give you guys, my full vote of confidence towards this project. I believe that this is something that we need to continue pushing forward on. Don't stand in the way of progress at this point in time. We've done a lot of really excellent things. Don't slow it down now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dorothy Harrell, and I'm a resident of Beloit, Wisconsin. Whatever your vote is this evening, the one thing I want to put in front of you is do not leave George Kolak behind. That's the name of this building, and it's my opinion, having grown up here, attended public school here, known Mr. Kolak when I was a student, knew him again when I came back as an employee of this district, that he should not be left behind, whatever your decisions are. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to just take a few minutes to give the public an explanation. Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Tia.
Tia Johnson, Beloit, Wisconsin still. Build it and they will come. That was the idea of the 2012 referendum. Now that you've had a moment to look at your data in front of you, look what happened actually the 2012 school year, 2012-13 school year. There was an actual jump in the number of students enrolling out, the net number out. In fact, we've lost more students at a greater rate since building that beautiful brand new Fran Frusen School, the beautiful natatorium. It's not bringing students in. You guys are missing the mark. You need to spend money on teachers, on quality education. Taking money out of the operating fund to pay for this is ridiculous. If this is that wonderful of an idea, it will pass a referendum. I think perhaps you don't want to go to referendum for fear of this failing. If it is that good of an idea, let the people of the school district decide. It will pass. If it's really what's needed, it will pass. Go to referendum. Stop losing students because of the inferior education that we're getting here. Now, the teachers are great. The teachers are wonderful. I bend over backwards for my son's teachers. But you know what? As there's been classroom size creep, it's been more and more difficult for them to be able to manage those classrooms. What is $200,000 a year? You know what? To those teachers, it's a whole lot. What's one or two more kids in a classroom? To my son sitting there trying to pay attention while somebody else next to him is misbehaving, it's a whole lot. What is $200,000 to the secretary, to the librarians, to all of your staff members? It means a whole lot. This is phase one. What's going to happen the following 3 phases? You guys are being short-sighted and being a little bit premature in deciding to spend $5.5 million to be paid back out of operating funds when you don't even know what this year's enrollment is going to be.
Anyone else?
Sorry, I didn't know we were on the agenda items. Ken Streeter, 1401 McKinley, again. I guess, when it comes down to buildings and things like that, there's no doubt. I mean, look around. I went to the sister school on the other side of town that no longer stands. A building is needed. Something needs to be done. Do I think a building attracts people? No, I don't. Nor do parking lots or canopies or turnarounds. I didn't know we were going to be timed on this part. I was just talking to the fellow from Angus Young about the parking lot. The parking lot isn't necessary to phase one. As a matter of fact, if I'm not misunderstood, the parking lot is necessary to phase two and is preemptive for phase two. And once that parking lot goes in, from what I understand, phase two is almost necessary because it's a reorganization of all the parking. We as the public were not informed of that. I mean, I don't know if you guys knew that or not. I mean, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what he told me. And just as far as image, I'd like to speak to that. I ran into a fella 2 weeks ago who lives just outside this district, desperately wants to enroll his son in our district, but won't. He wants to enroll him because of our sports programs. We have great sports programs. And I'm like, well, why don't you want to just enroll him in our district? He says, Ken, I fear for my son's safety. I fear for my son's safety. A parking lot isn't going to fix that. A building isn't going to fix that. A canopy isn't going to fix that. That's the image people have outside of our community, not of a new building, not of a canopy, not of a parking lot. The image is in people's hearts because of what they see and what they know and what they hear. Thank you.
Point of information. President Indris, the comment that was just made about the parking lot connected to phase two, could Jamie or someone verify that and give us any additional information on that? Yes. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Streeter.
Joe Stottleman, 2431 East Ridge Road. I'll address that comment. We planned for the parking lot in phase one because we need to start to build more parking lots as we transition play fields and we remove parking lots from other areas of the campus. We've got to build some first in order to build the second and take out parking in the next phase. So it's just the first step to that phase. And we have talked that only has to happen when you're ready to do phase two. We don't have to build that parking lot in phase one, but it just makes sense to call it a part of the first step of phase one so that you're in preparation for phase two.
Follow up on point of information. Jamie, could you give me the dollar amount? I don't have the packet before me for parking lot in phase one.
Is it 200,000? I don't have mine with me either.
Okay, we can pause because that's important. Number two, could you also give me the amount for the canopy?
Yeah, the canopy was budgeted at $80,000.
Okay, what's the amount for the parking lot?
I think I would like to point out that we had budgeted $6.3 million for the entire phase one, and all you're approving is the building of the Welcome Center at $5.5 million. So we're only discussing the Welcome Center. Those other pieces are not a part of this discussion.
So what's the difference in the 800? That's $800,000.
The difference between 5.5 and 6.3.
Yeah, that's 800,000.
Yeah, so that's we budgeted for all that work, the turnaround, the parking lot, the canopy. We're a part of the other and the closing of 4th Street. We're all a part of a total 6.3 million, and all that, what has come out of this discussion is that you're approving a budget for the Welcome Center in and of itself.
Okay, Jane, I'm sorry, President Andrews, can I follow up on my question? And I guess I have more questions because I wasn't here, I was out of town. Jamie, in this email, so is this correct? I want to make sure I have all my numbers right.
Does include all that?
Is the Welcome Center parking and furnishing the 5.2? Okay, does that 5.2 include the parking lot or canopy? No. Okay. I'm sorry, 1 second, Pam. What'd you say?
The can.
He was 80,000. Welcome Center parking is 5.2.
Yeah, the site work around the Welcome Center was 5.2.
Okay, so to make sure that everybody's on the same page, so for the Welcome Center, parking and furnishing is 5.2 million. But then in that, then you're saying that's not parking. That doesn't make sense to me. Could you help me, Jamie, please?
So the breakdown is as follows. We got the canopy at the front door for 80,000. So that way, when people come to Beloit Memorial, they are aware of where the front door is, because now some people come and they're not sure which door they're supposed to come into. We have the Welcome Center, a parking lot for people to park to come to the Welcome Center, and furnishings at 5.2 million. We have the turnaround by the pool for 61,600. And that's because currently the buses, when they drive into that parking lot, they can't get out. So they're driving on the sidewalk, the pedestrian sidewalk in front of the river, which isn't safe. And then they're coming back out over by the theater. So we were going to create a turnaround so buses and cars, when they go to the pool, can get out of that parking lot. Then we have the parking lot that's situated by the tennis courts, which is budgeted at 84,000. And like Joe said, these items, they are part of the resolution, but if we don't want to do the parking lot, we don't have to. But it is part of the resolution, so the option is there for us to do that. If something comes in over budget or we can't do it, we can't do it.
So the parking lot is how much?
84,000.
Okay.
And that's by the tennis courts, over by the theater.
I want to ask you a question, Jamie, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm asking you because this is your expertise. Is this dollar amount, the $5.5 million, the bare minimum, and are you comfortable with this?
It is the bare minimum, and I am very comfortable that we will be able to complete all of the projects on the list, including the parking lot over by the tennis courts. And it may be that parking lot is for phase 2, but that parking lot can be used for those tennis courts when we have theater events, when we have graduation. I don't necessarily want to say that parking lot either is a waste, as it can be utilized as well, but it is part of the first phase, and I feel comfortable with the 5.5.
Final question, if I may, President Andrews. Does approving this $5.5 million, does it lock us into phase 2 and other subsequent phases?
It does not. It is just for phase 1.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate that. Again, I'm Shirley Williams, 2170 Hayfield Lane. This has been really, I guess, a challenging concern for me for the district, because from my basic understanding, Beloit 2020 came forward, and they've been working on this plan for a number of years. I think I even heard maybe even a decade plus. And it became the opportune time for the district to be able to assist with this Welcome Center, which, again, we all know this building is dated and falling apart and has issues, which a lot of structures here in Beloit has, including people's homes that they rent. But my confusion is, why is the district using funds from their operating budget And why aren't the business community stepping up to assist more with funding this? And the people I've asked have not been able to give me an answer to that. Why are the dollars coming from the operating budget of the district? And particularly, there's no concrete number yet for a budget for dollars that are going to be coming in. There's no concrete dollars known for any budget actually in the nation right now. So I'm just a quite bit confused. I'm thinking that you guys must be the expert and have those answers because you're comfortable enough to re-vote on this. And I would ask you to really, really search your heart as you move forward. I understand the pressure, and yes, it will look good. I'm not convinced that any students or parents will come because of it, and we are looking forward. But please think about that question. Why are the dollars coming out of the operating budget? Thank you.
I have one thing to read an explanation for this or say before I take board debate on this one. So I just want to give a couple minutes here to give an explanation for tonight's meeting as well as this agenda item. I want to remind everyone that members of this board are citizen politicians, not professional politicians. Most of us are balancing this role with full-time jobs, raising children, and other commitments. The vote that was taken on Tuesday night has been called into question due to its placement on the agenda under superintendent's report instead of business action items. Rest assured, tonight's agenda has been fully vetted by professionals. I want to apologize for the inconvenience of a second meeting. Too often, progress in this district has been hindered by a few adults endlessly arguing over meaningless details, egos, and personal agendas. Our children, the district staff, and this vote are too important to risk more of the same. We are repeating the previous unanimous vote to ensure as we move forward there is no undue negative publicity or further waste of district time or money. So we're going to go ahead and take...
Point of order. I don't think we can say we're repeating a unanimous vote. We're going to vote tonight again. But to say that we're repeating a unanimous vote is presumptuous.
We're repeating the vote that was unanimous from the previous meeting. We are, unless I have a different citizen who would like to speak.
Well, it sounds like we're debating and bringing forth ideas from citizens and to the board because this seems to be moving so fast. There was new information just revealed tonight.
I am taking citizen comments, then I'm looking for a motion and a second, and then I will hear board input and debate. So I'd like a motion, because we're going to do a motion first, then a second, then we'll debate.
Okay. I move adoption of resolution number 17-18.02, the initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $5.5 million and calling a public hearing in connection therewithin.
Can I get a second, please?
I second that motion.
All right, I have a motion on the table on initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $5.5 million and calling a public hearing in connection therewith for the purpose of Phase 1 of the Beloit Memorial High School Master Plan. Can I please have board questions, debate? Pam?
Jamie, I would like to ask you to please clarify. Mr. Streeter said that if we do this parking lot, we are committed, and that's what he understood. Is this a fact, or can we do the parking lot without being committed? Because I feel like I heard both.
There is no commitment to Phase 2 with this $5.5 million.
Okay, and then if you could, I have one more question about the dollar amount. $5.5 million, it says up to.
Correct.
Not to exceed.
Correct.
So can we decide at a later date we're not going to do certain parts of this and we won't need to borrow that much money?
We will borrow the full $5.5 million, and if the board chooses or the budget comes in less than 5.5 or a project comes in less than 5.5, we'll pay that money back to the debt.
Okay, we'll just pay whatever we have in excess
Correct.
back.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you,
You're
Jamie.
welcome.
Any other board questions? Dennis?
I call the question.
Michelle, would you please proceed with the roll call vote?
We need a second, please.
Go ahead and second.
2/3 majority vote.
On the question, go ahead and second, please.
I'll second to call the question.
All those in favor to call the question, say aye.
Roll call vote, 2/3 roll call.
Michelle, can you proceed with a roll call vote? On the question.
Anderson Levy?
Aye.
Gaskin?
Aye.
Charles?
Aye.
Cronin? Aye. Endres?
Aye.
Klobuchar?
Aye.
Sanchez?
Aye.
Motion carries. Question is called. We'll end debate and go ahead and vote. So let me repeat one more time. I have a motion on the table. Board action on initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $5.5 million and calling a public hearing in connection therewith for the purpose of Phase 1 of the Beloit Memorial High School Master Plan. Michelle, can you go ahead and do a roll call vote, please?
Anderson Levy?
Aye.
Gaskin?
Aye.
Charles?
Aye.
Cronin? Aye. Endres?
Aye.
Klobuchar?
Abstain.
Sanchez?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have approved board action on initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $5.5 million and calling a public hearing in connection therewith for the purpose of Phase 1 of the Beloit Memorial High School Master Plan. Are there any other items for future discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.